You've probably heard this 1,000 times. Imagination creates reality. And if you've been practicing the law of assumption, you already know that. But today, I want to take you beyond just knowing it. I want to take you into the experience of what that truly means. Because once this clicks for you, and I promise it will, you'll feel like everything finally makes sense. You'll stop second guessing. You'll stop wondering, am I doing it right? And you'll step into a confidence that's unshakable. Not because you forced yourself to believe harder, but because you'll see the truth. Here's the truth. You are not the one who needs to make manifestation happen. You are not the one who needs to push, force, or wait. The real you, the true imaginer, has already done the work the moment the desire was imagined. You're not broken. You're not behind. You've simply been identifying with the wrong version of yourself. And today, that ends. Because when you understand who is truly imagining, and who is simply observing the 3D, you'll stop being confused by doubt. You'll stop reacting to what appears to be missing. And instead, you'll relax into the knowing that what you imagined is done. This one shift changes everything. It changed everything for me. I used to think that I was the one visualizing, scripting, doing the work, but then I realized that I, the one with fears, logic, and memories, is not the imaginer. That is the false self. The false self is the voice that panics, doubts, and questions. But you, the real you, are the one who imagined even that self into being. You are awareness itself. And once you shift into this knowing, you'll never have to try to manifest again. You'll know that it's already done. You'll feel a calm confidence settle in because you've returned to your power, not by effort, but by identity. Here's what most people miss. What keeps them looping in doubt, trying harder, seeking more techniques, more confirmations, more signs. And it's this: the self they believe is doing the imagining, the self they believe is manifesting, is not the one with any power at all. That self, the one wrapped in identity, shaped by memory, tied to logic, concerned with appearances and timing, that's the false self. And no matter how sincere, how determined, how disciplined it may be, the false self is never the imaginer. It is not the source. It is not the cause. It is only ever the effect. It's not that the false self is bad or broken. It's that it is simply not capable of doing what only awareness can do. It doesn't matter how often it repeats affirmations, how vividly it tries to visualize, how perfectly it attempts to follow the steps, because it's not the one doing it. It's like an actor in a play trying to rewrite the script while still on stage, never realizing the story was authored long before the curtain even rose. The false self lives entirely in the world of cause and effect, in the realm of appearances and time, in the dimension where things are always happening but never being created. So of course it doubts, of course it panics, of course it tries to figure out what went wrong. But none of that means anything, because it's not the one imagining. It wasn't even in the room when the desire was planted in consciousness. The true imaginer, the real you, is awareness itself. Silent, still, timeless. The one who observes thought, rather than the one thinking. The one who imagines the entire life of the false self, not from a place of struggle, but from a place of pure knowing. And when you stop looking to the false self for confirmation, when you stop asking it to feel sure, or to believe, or to validate that something is working, you reclaim your position as the imaginer. You step out of reaction and into authorship. You no longer need evidence, because you remember the only evidence that ever mattered was the imaginal act itself. That is the seed. That is the creation. And everything else, absolutely everything, is just a shadow catching up. One of the greatest sources of suffering in the manifestation journey is not that things take time to appear, but that the false self insists on understanding what can only be known in silence. It keeps asking questions. Why is it taking so long? Did I do it correctly? What if it doesn't come? As though the answers to those questions lie somewhere out in the world, or in more effort, or in some hidden spiritual technique still undiscovered. But none of that is true. The reason the false self cannot understand imagination is because it was never built to. It doesn't have the capacity. It's like asking a radio to see light, or asking a hammer to compose music. The tool is real, it serves a function, but it is completely unsuited for perceiving what imagination truly is. Imagination does not operate through logic, time, analysis, or memory. It happens in the eternal present, in the silence before words, in the space that existed before the false self ever formed its first thought. It is so immediate, so intimate, so natural, that the false self, forever chasing evidence, completely misses it. And so, when you imagine a scene, a real, felt scene that implies your desire is fulfilled, it is done. The imaginal act is complete. But the false self, who is not the one doing the imagining, looks around and says, nothing happened. It looks for proof, but finds none. It listens for confirmation, but hears only silence. And in that silence, it panics, not because anything went wrong, but because it doesn't have access to the place where creation occurred. That's the moment many people abandon their desire. Not because the desire failed, but because they mistook the false self's blindness for truth. They believed the one who couldn't see, couldn't feel, couldn't grasp imagination must be right. But that's like trusting a blindfolded man to tell you whether the sunrise happened. It did. You saw it. He didn't. And that's okay. That doesn't make it any less real. So when doubt arises, and it will, remember, this is not a sign that something has gone wrong. This is simply the false self doing what it always does, trying to navigate a world it was never meant to control. You, awareness, do not need to argue with it. You only need to see it for what it is, and continue walking in the knowing that what was imagined is already finished. The false self is not the enemy, though it often feels like it. It's easy to view the doubts, the fears, the logical questions that arise as obstacles, something to overcome, something to battle against in the process of manifestation. But the truth is, the false self is simply playing the role it was designed to play, and it's doing so quite perfectly. It's not here to destroy your dreams or get in the way of your desires. Its role is much more subtle, much more fundamental than that. The false self exists to maintain the illusion of separation. It's the part of you that believes it is separate from the universe, separate from the creator, separate from the source of all imagination. It sees itself as an individual, a separate entity, and it seeks to make sense of the world based on past experiences, sensory data, and logic. But just because it performs this role well doesn't mean it's necessary for your success. You don't need the false self to manifest, but you do need to understand it. The false self is there to make sense of the world you've imagined, to interpret and experience the 3D reality. But it does not hold the keys to creation. Think of it like this. If you were a writer creating a novel, the main character of that novel might question the plot, might wonder why certain things happen, or try to control the direction of the story. But it's not the character who is the author. The author has already written the book. The plot is already determined. The character's job is to experience it, not to alter it. When you see the false self in this light, you stop fighting it. You stop trying to force it to believe or to understand your manifestations. Instead, you allow it to do its job. It's there to experience the physical world, to engage with time, to react to the things that show up, but it doesn't need to know how or why the manifestation is happening. It's not designed to understand the true nature of reality. That's why you, as awareness, are the only one who can truly create. So, don't waste your energy arguing with the false self. It's simply playing its part. You don't need to change it, control it, or silence it. You simply need to see it for what it is, and allow it to be. There comes a point in the manifestation journey when you realize something profound. The moment you stop identifying with the false self, everything shifts. It's not about controlling the false self, forcing it to change, or even silencing its doubts. It's about recognizing that you are not it. You are not the thoughts. You are not the fears. You are not the worries that flood your mind in moments of doubt. You are not the version of yourself that looks to time and physical evidence for confirmation. When you make this realization, when you finally see that you are awareness itself, the creator, the imaginer, the one who is behind all thought, everything begins to unfold effortlessly. The doubts don't matter anymore, because they no longer hold the power they once had over you. They are simply passing thoughts, just like any other, that come and go without any real impact on your reality. The false self wants to control, wants to understand, wants to cling to the 3D world, because that's what it was built to do. It holds on to the idea of time and space, trying to make sense of the linear world around it. But you, as awareness, exist beyond time. You exist outside of space. You are the infinite, the eternal. You don't need time to create. You don't need evidence to know the truth. The moment you remember that you are not the false self, you stop looking to the world for proof. You stop searching for things to line up and fall into place. And in that moment, you allow the manifestation to unfold in its own time, without any effort, without any need to push, pull, or force it into being. The imagination has already done the work. The seed has been planted. The creation is complete. And now, you simply watch it unfold, trusting that it will appear exactly when it's meant to. There is no urgency, no rush, no impatience. You no longer need to control or manipulate the process. You just are. When you stop identifying with the false self, you step into a place of peace, of knowing. The false self may still appear in your mind, trying to create doubt, but now it is simply a passing thought, like the weather. It has no power over you. You've returned to the only truth that matters. You are the imaginer, and everything else is simply part of the story you've created. Once you understand that you are not the false self, that you are the imaginer, the creator, the awareness behind all things, there's a profound shift that takes place within you. It's the shift from trying to make things happen to simply trusting that everything you desire is already unfolding. Even when the false self cannot see it, even when the world around you shows no sign of change. At this point, the key is trust. Trusting the imagination, trusting the process, and trusting that what you have imagined has already taken root in the infinite realm of awareness. The false self, with its fears and doubts, might urge you to seek proof, to look for signs, to constantly ask, where is it? Why hasn't it shown up yet? But none of that is necessary. The moment you imagine, the creation is done. The only thing that remains is for the 3D world to reflect what has already been made. This is where most people get caught in the trap of doubt. They believe that the world has to reflect their imagination immediately. And if it doesn't, they think they've done something wrong. They start questioning themselves, doubting their own power, and thinking that they need to try harder or be more patient. But what they don't realize is that time is not the issue. The issue is that they're identifying with the false self, which is rooted in the illusion of separation and constantly looking for external validation. Trusting the imagination means stepping away from that need for validation. It's about understanding that once you've imagined something, it is already real in the realm of awareness, and you don't need the false self to believe it for it to come into being. The false self is just an observer in this process. Its job is to interpret the physical world, not to control the imaginal realm. And once you realize that, you stop fighting against it. Trusting your imagination is the act of remembering that the creative power is already within you. You do not need to figure out how it works, because it works through you naturally, effortlessly. You don't need to manipulate the circumstances, because the circumstances are simply the outcome of what you've already imagined. When you fully accept this, when you finally trust that the imaginal act is the key, you will no longer feel the need to force or control your manifestations. They will unfold in their perfect time, in their perfect form. One of the most powerful things you can do on your manifestation journey is to embrace the silence that exists between your imaginal act and its physical manifestation. The silence is often misinterpreted as nothing happening, as though you've done something wrong, or as if your desire isn't coming fast enough. But in reality, this silence is the fertile ground in which your desires are growing, even though you may not see them yet. The false self, in all its conditioning, is accustomed to constant action, constant movement, constant proof. It looks for signs in the physical world, needing to feel something tangible, needing to measure progress. But the true work, the creation, happens beyond time, beyond the senses. It happens in that quiet space where the false self has no influence. When you imagine, you are planting a seed in the garden of your consciousness, but that seed needs time to sprout. The false self may try to push it, may ask how long it will take, may try to dig it up and see if it's sprouting yet. But that's not the way it works. You don't need to worry about the seed. You don't need to watch it grow. You simply need to trust that the soil is fertile, the conditions are right, and the seed will eventually break through the surface of reality when the time is right. Embracing the silence means letting go of the need to rush or push things into being. It means surrendering to the process, trusting that everything you've imagined is already done in the invisible realm of consciousness. The false self might get impatient, might try to control or manipulate the timing, but that's not your job. Your job is to rest in the knowing that the imaginal world is more real than the physical one. And the moment you imagine, the creation is already in motion. By embracing the silence, you stop trying to make things happen. Instead, you allow the unfolding to happen naturally, as though you've set a course and know the ship is going to reach its destination, even though you cannot see it yet. Trusting this silence is an act of surrender. It's the moment you stop looking for proof and just live as if it's already done. And in that peaceful trust, everything begins to align. The false self may continue its chatter, but you're no longer listening. You're in the knowing. The final step in your journey is perhaps the most profound, living as the true imaginer, beyond the false self, in the full realization of your creative power. This is not about simply using imagination to get what you want. It's about recognizing that imagination is you. It is not a tool you pick up. It is your very essence, your natural state. It is how you exist, how you move through the world, how you shape every experience. The false self is just a passing shadow, a construct built from stories, experiences, and perceptions, none of which can touch the truth of who you are. When you see through this illusion, when you stop identifying with the false self and realize that you are the one who imagines all things, something miraculous happens. You no longer have to struggle. You no longer have to try harder. The burden of doing is lifted, and you step into a state of effortless creation. Living as the true imaginer means you no longer question whether your desire is possible or how it will come to you. You no longer need external validation. You know that the moment you imagine, the seed has been planted in the infinite soil of awareness, and it is only a matter of time before it manifests in your physical reality. The false self may still appear, may still try to make sense of things, but now you simply allow it to be. You recognize it for what it is, a limited, temporary perspective, not the creator of your reality. As the true imaginer, you embrace the fact that everything you desire is already yours, and it exists in the eternal now. You trust that it is already done. And you walk forward in life as though it has already manifested, because, in truth, it has. You live from the knowing that you are the source of everything that comes to you, and this knowing becomes your power. It is in this state of being that your manifestations come effortlessly, without force, without struggle, because you no longer try to make them happen, you simply know they are already done. The false self, with all its doubts and fears, no longer holds sway over you. You have transcended its limitations. And in doing so, you have stepped into your true role as the creator of your experience. You are the imaginer, and everything that flows from your imagination is your reality. This is the final freedom. This is the truth of who you are. You've just stepped beyond the illusions. Now, what's the one thing you're ready to stop doubting and start trusting to unfold? Share your thoughts below, and let's shift the narrative together. Remember, what you imagine is already yours.